Hello and welcome to CW Live. My name is Chris Webb, Head of Communications. Delighted to have with me our General Secretary, Dave Wall. Morning, Dave.
Morning, everybody.
Acting Deputy General Secretary, Postal Andy Furey. Morning, Andy.
Hi. Hi, Chris. Hi, everybody.
Good to have you all with us. Obviously, first thing to say is most of you, we know will be at work when we're going live. It's the case, obviously, Dave and Andy, super busy, got lots of stuff to be getting on with this afternoon, and we'll be talking about that body of work as we go through this session. The majority of you, I'm sure, will be watching this on catch up. So whether you're live or whether it's later on, you're welcome to the show. It's really appreciate that you come on and you joined us. You'd have seen, Dave, I think I'm going to come to you really for a broader update. And then we've got obviously quite a few questions for Andy and Dave. But we had the select committee yesterday, another sort of one of those landmark moments in a huge series of them in this prolonged and bitter dispute with the company. But I think we will talk about a little bit of that later on. What I really wanted to get to, though, really, is the members. We had the big ballot result last week. It was historical. Yourself and Andy commented on that immediately. I suppose people are saying, where are we at now?
Yeah. So what we want to do is give all of our members, a real update on exactly where we are in the dispute. As Chris said, since the ballot result, what's been happening in the background. And it is important that to give you the fullest possible update, we are going to have to explain some of the events that have taken place just before the ballot result was announced and obviously subsequent to the ballot result. So the first development, and it was a significant development, was that I was contacted by Brendan Barber, who's the former TUC General Secretary and is known as a kind of expert facilitator. Brendan's not been involved in the process previously, but the chair of the company, Keith Williams, and I both know Brendan and have worked with him, the three of us, before in the past. And Keith Williams had contacted Brendan to seek a meeting. So naturally, we agreed that meeting. That meeting took place on the 14th of February. And the meeting discussed, I suppose, three things, really. One, it was made clear to me that the board were now intervening in the dispute, given the seriousness of the situation that we're in. Secondly, the chair of the company set out, if you like, the gravity of the situation on Royal Mail's finances, their economic challenges, and he went through that to sort of explain to us where the company were. And thirdly, and most importantly in this sense, we talked about how we would move this forward. And we started the discussion on a new process that would obviously involve different people on Royal Mail's side, Royal Mail Group's side, that board members would actually now be put into the negotiations. So that progressed well. It was a good meeting. I reported that to our executive. Then on the 16th of February, we had obviously the day we announced the ballot, around about an hour before we were due to announce the ballot, we became aware of a posting from the CEO that was clearly designed to sort of set his narrative on what this process was about. Well, that was interesting. It wasn't helpful, wasn't accurate, completely inaccurate. But it was interesting in that he was trying to set a narrative about something that he wasn't part of. And our understanding, and this continues to be our understanding, is that in the negotiations that will proceed now, the CEO is not part of Royal Mail Group's negotiating team. That's a matter for them, how they deal with that. He's the CEO still, and naturally he's still a board member. So, that's up to them. So that wasn't a helpful intervention. It's not the first one of those. And we had to put that right. So obviously when we went live on our press conference, we explained exactly what had taken place. And subsequent to that, we held a national briefing after the ballot result, magnificent ballot result, incredible resolve from the members, and, put a lot of faith in us, but also completely rejected, again, the actions of the company. And, we know how strongly you feel about what's going on there. So we then had a national briefing with about 300 or 400 of our representatives who came to Manchester on Friday, and we explained exactly where we were, People have different views, but we did set out that we wanted to let the ballot result breathe. We wanted to change the dynamics of the dispute, and we wanted to give an opportunity for this new process to take shape and hopefully reach an agreement. So what came following that was myself and Andy met the two board members briefly on the Friday after the national briefing. Then we set up a meeting that took place on Tuesday of this week. And the outcome of that meeting, it was a good meeting, facilitated again by Brendan Barber and ACAS, Chief Conciliator. And the outcome of that was that we had a statement that's a good statement that we then took back to our postal executive for endorsement. The postal executive endorsed the statement, and Royal Mail had endorsed the statement as we understood it by the chair, Keith Williams. And that was our understanding just before the select committee took place. What's in the statement is, first of all, it confirms that this is a different process. This is not where we've been involved in negotiations so far. And the key point in that, and that is very significant for the company, is that the board have now formally intervened in this dispute. And anybody who understands the relationship between the board and the CEO knows that, you know, in wider circles, that will be seen as a major intervention by the board. So we welcome that intervention because it gives us a chance to negotiate with people who have got the full authority now to reach an agreement, and hopefully that, you know, we can still do that. So the statement confirmed that process and named the two board members that are now going to be involved directly with me and Andy in getting the agreement, along with the rest of our teams and their team. So that was that. The second point is that it confirmed that we want the agreement concluded within 3 weeks. And the 3 weeks is obviously kicks off at the point when you agree the statement. That again is welcome because it shows a commitment that we can't mess about here. We know the pressure that's on our members in the workplaces. We know the pressures that are on the company. Both sides have said, let's get this deal done now in the next 3 weeks using this new process. We welcome that. The statement also, and this is the key part really from our perspective at the moment, is that it set out very, very clearly that the company and us would now urgently address and minimise the tensions that our members are facing every single day in the workplace. And that to us is really, really important, because the truth is we cannot conclude a deal whilst the company continue to attack our members in what we see. And this was discussed at our national briefing with our reps on last Friday, in the most appalling way. The executive action that's taking place is going to end up being a complete disaster. And the attacks on our members and reps and the conduct, the suspensions, the dismissals hasn't stopped. So therefore the statement addressed that, and it made it clear that we would need to look at those two issues. And it then went on to say that we recognise that the company is now facing the most serious financial and economic challenges in its history, and that the only way to resolve those issues is for us to reach a national agreement. So there was a strong commitment in there for both parties to work together. Now, what we want is to see that you see that out in the workplace. And at the moment, we know that ain't happening. So we went back to Royal Mail yesterday, wrote to Brendan Barber, who's heading this process. And we said in that letter, which I copied to Keith Williams, just before the select committee started, because that was after we had our meeting with the executive, who backed the statement unanimously. We went back and said, we have got to conclude those issues that are causing the tensions out in the field now, the unacceptable behaviour of management. That has to be resolved, or we have to find a way forward that we're satisfied with and that you would be satisfied with by a close of play on Monday of next week. And me and Andy are going into a meeting tomorrow with the two board members and we will be talking about those issues. Our team, there's two of our team, Mark Balsh and Davey Robertson, are in with Royal Mail today to talk specifically on the executive action and finding a way forward on that. If they don't find a way forward on that, then me and Andy will be in with the two board members tomorrow to do that, as well as addressing the other issue of the conduct stuff. For us, this is very simple. And for anybody looking at this, anybody observing this dispute, it's very simple. You cannot address these huge problems that everybody's talking about and reach an agreement whilst the company continue to attack our members in the workplace. Now, we're waiting for their response from that. They told us before that they'd agreed that. What we think has happened now is that because we've said we've got to conclude that part of it by Monday, that maybe that's made them, think about where they are. But, we ain't going to change our position on that. And actually, we want to sort that out today. We want to sort it out tomorrow. If it's not sorted out today, we'll sort it out over the weekend. But we want to be absolutely clear. We get what's happening in the workplace. It is time for the company to stop attacking people if they want an agreement. And that has got to be done first. It's a logical move. It's the sensible move. And I suppose most importantly, it's the real test of whether they're committed to this latest process and this latest statement. If they can't get over that hurdle, and we can't get over that hurdle, then none of you will have any confidence that we can reach an agreement. So that's exactly where we are. We're committed to finding this agreement. We should talk about strike action at some point. We've got that mandate. Our view is that we shouldn't use that mandate at this point. But obviously, come Monday, if we haven't found that solution, the executive is going to meet again on Tuesday, and the executive will want to discuss all of those options. Our view on strike mandates is that actually this is a moment where we need to close down the deal. We need to get in the room. We need to use the collateral of the strike in order to get the deal, not necessarily name a day. However, we've got this hurtling towards us, this pressure that's on our members that is unacceptable. And that means that we'll be thinking about that early next week if we haven't sorted this out by Monday. So that's exactly where we are. And we wanted to give you the fullest possible update on that.
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate that, mate. Comprehensive, and I'm sure you can see the members comment in their droves. Also, should say really, there's 3,500 members on, which is incredible since we didn't advertise the session. Make sure that your yellow dots aren't growing bigger and bigger and bigger, because we saw that at the select committee yesterday, everybody. Andy, I want to come to you straight off the bat if I can. I mean, I can see in the comments there, lots of people saying, what the union's achieved so far. The joint statement sounds good, positive about the board intervening. I mean, the phrase that Dave used there, which is the board have intervened, was used by the chair yesterday at the select committee. He said that the board had intervened in the dispute himself. So I think there's a lot of positivity around that, first of all, in the comments I can see. There is a lot of nervousness as well from our members, particularly in two categories, and I want to put that to you. First is members who have suffered executive action in the workplace, start times changed, duties ripped out, people of 30 to 40 plus years service who are no longer on the deliveries and no longer offered a chat or reserves all of a sudden. And then obviously something we've talked about extensively, the amount of suspensions, dismissals and conduct cases facing our members and reps. So I think, whilst welcoming, the developments that Dave's outlined there, and the unions talked about the national briefing last week, there is, a chance, I suppose, for you now to, reaffirm what Dave was saying and perhaps put your own take on it. Is are we going to sort these things out before we move on to the wider talks? Because even in a common sense point of view, I'm thinking of you and Dave here, really, that can't be a decent environment for negotiations. For you to be in there trying to solve massive issues while there's effectively ground war going on and they're kicking lumps out of our members in the workplace.
Yeah, look, there's been a convergence of a lot of different aspects here, and the timing has worked out really well. So, last Thursday, just a week ago, our members delivered that massive yes vote. That was referred to in the select committee yesterday, and recognition from politicians that it was enormous. The scale was unprecedented. The second thing is the select committee itself. So, the pressure that's on Royal Mail, the chairman and the CEO and a senior operations director being in front of the select committee was big. We can talk some more about that later on. But in terms of the two critical issues, so we're encouraged. The postal executive is encouraged. Certainly, Dave and I and the officers are encouraged that we've got these talks off the ground, and they're a different dynamic now. And so, the meeting that Dave spoke about that we had on Tuesday, there was the two facilitators, Brendan and Marina Glasgow from ACAS. She's the chief conciliator of ACAS. The two non-executive directors for Royal Mail. The first time they've actually been in the room with the union, and Dave and myself. So we're 6 people in a room, and that is a new impetus, a new focus, a new dynamic to the dispute. And so, we've got to welcome that. But what we've also got to do is make rapid progress on the key issues of executive action, revisions, the lapsing plans, the collapsing of the duties and attendance patterns as our members are what they're used to. And some of this, and we don't hesitate to say this, some of these changes that are being imposed are just purely spiteful. They're not needed, they're not required, they don't make the operation better, they're not designed to give a customer a better service. They are actually just vindictive nastiness on behalf of managers that are trying to get paid back or settle old scores. It's just uncalled for. In terms of job losses, the union accepts that there has to be job losses because there's been a decline in traffic, but it has to be reasonable, it has to be proportionate, it has to be measured, and it has to be balanced. And of course, revisions should be agreed. Our local representatives should be fully involved in negotiating the attendance patterns, what the number of days off you have, the number of Saturdays off in any given period. All of these duties that have been constructed over a period of time to give people the best work-life balance, they've got to be preserved. That doesn't mean that we won't take jobs out of the industry that are not needed. It just means that we'll have to ensure that members can carry on having a reasonable work-life balance. And that's what we've got to deliver. And that's why we've said to Sir Brendan Barber and the two non-executive directors of Royal Mail that we've got to make progress on this by close of play Monday.
I'll come back on the reps if I can, obviously, and the members are suspended because I think the executive action stuff there. Now, I mean, Dave, you might want to come in as well and back up some of this, but come back to you first, Andy. I mean, obviously, that executive action stuff. I think people watching both Dave and Andy have been crystal clear. It isn't a case of forgotten; it's a case of that's at the front of the queue now to the issue to deal with before we move to the wider. But some of our reps now, some of our members have been suspended for 6 months. They're worried sick. We've had people know the trigger has been pressed and they're actually dismissed there without pay, etc. Is that of equal importance for you and Dave and the officers going into those negotiations?
Looking after men and women, members and representatives alike that have been totally victimised. They are victims of the Royal Mail's attitude towards them. Fitted up or stitched up, that has equal prominence in our objectives to find a way forward by close of play Monday. The post executive met yesterday and agreed with this strategy. Very, very supportive that we've got to put pressure on the two non-executive directors of Royal Mail to make progress in this area. And worryingly, it's been reported to me today that there seems to be a flurry of activity with a number of dismissals that have come in the last 3 or 4 days. It's almost like a dash to make it happen before the guillotine comes down, because what we've got to get is something like a moratorium, something that actually stops any dismissals, like we stop the merry-go-round, put a break on it, and then we get a decent process where we can review all of these cases. And I think we definitely need some independence there. We need some organisation or some respected body or person to come in here and have a look at exactly what's going on. And it's pleasing that with what went on the select committee yesterday that this sort of thing is starting to get scrutiny, and MPs are picking up on this as well. Dave actually wrote to all MPs yesterday as well, really powerful letter that was sent by our General Secretary to MPs, highlighting not just what's going on with impositional revisions and such like, but also the bullying and harassment of our members. We've even had an email in today from the Shadow Minister for Employment, seeking a meeting with the union to say, they want to find, Labour wants to find out more about this. So look, we're turning the temperature up, we're turning the heat up. I believe this will gain media coverage and the scrutiny and spotlights on Royal Mail. The way they have behaved is despicable. They are treating decent men and women in a terrible way, men and women that have given their working lives to this industry. They simply ain't on, and we're not having it, and we've got to deal with this. We will.
Dave, one of the things we take you back to the briefing we had on Friday in Manchester of all of our senior reps, which was an excellent briefing. One of the things that was really powerful in that briefing, the union, like every organisation, is quite a wide church. You get people who would come to the rostrum and say, let's go out on strike until we win this. You get some people who come and say, look, we need to negotiate our way through this, and you get probably the majority somewhere in between in terms of pressure points. But there was a continual stream of speakers who were talking about having never seen anything like the behaviours that they're seeing right now, and like being so outraged with Royal Mail, being so struck by the vindictiveness and the aggression of Royal Mail, and saying like, we need to do whatever it takes now to defend our reps and members, and we need to take this dispute all the way. Alongside that, we also had reps coming to, I don't want to pick out their names because that's not fair and we haven't got their permission, but reps coming to the rostrum saying, alongside loving being a rep, they've also loved being a postal worker for 30, 40 years. And, one rep, again, won't use his name, I recall coming to the rostrum and saying he felt sick driving into work, not knowing whether that was going to be the day he was going to be sacked. And the charge was completely and utterly, spurious and outrageous. We've got to deal with these things, Dave, and surely we've got to deal with them before you get into these, really important but wider issues. We can't have our members and reps treated like this anymore.
Well, the gravity of what's happening in the workplace is what keeps us every day occupied. The talks, are almost like, that's our job, we'll sort that out. And we're actually confident now that with the intervention that's been made and with the seriousness of the situation focusing both parties, we think we can get agreement now on all the issues that are involved in pay and change. And we believe that will be an agreement that we can put to our members, that our members will see how much, that we've got a good deal in all the circumstances. But these two issues, and we do need to explore them more, and I think it's the first time we've been able to talk about this in this way, which is really important. That briefing on Friday, I came away from that briefing thinking that it was probably the best gathering of our representatives that we've had for years. Sometimes when we go to briefings, I don't mind admitting this, it's a bit like a rally. We're all sitting there, we're all, come on. We don't need that sort of briefing at the moment. Our members have backed the union. What we needed was a serious debate about what's actually happening in the workplace. And I have to say, the contributions that our representatives made, if they could have been filmed, if they could have been put out, and if you'd have seen them, and the human stories of you, the members, and what you're going through, and how that was explained to everybody, what that does is it galvanises us, but it says to people like me and Andy and the whole of the executive, we've got to sort this out. And, we ain't being taken for idiots here, where we go in there for 3 weeks and out there's a war going on our members. It is unacceptable. And I think we should explore a little bit more the reasons why, because it's time to talk honestly about these things. Sometimes some people on the other side of the house, the business, will say, we shouldn't do this. But we are calling these people out today. We know that one of them is the operational director, never comes into the meetings, sits behind in this gold command, and they are deliberately intervening in these conduct cases. We've got hard evidence of that. So when the statement talks about a process for dealing with these cases that's fair, because it does, what we are clear on, that process is not the conduct process that Royal Mail is using today. Our members have been fitted up. We know we got hard evidence. We just want to get that evidence out. We can't put it out publicly, but we've told the chair of the company about this. We've told certain people in the company that this is happening. But here's the problem. It's happening at the top of the company. It's happening from the very, very top of the company. These people, even the people we're sitting in the room now with, our view is at some point they must have sanctioned this approach. And the truth is this, these people have become obsessed with destroying the morale of the existing workforce, destroying the union, and their number one objective in this dispute has not been to put Royal Mail back where it needs to be. It's been to remove the collective voice of the union in the workplace. That's what's going on here. That's what this dispute is really boiling down to, whether our members have a say over change. And, you know, some of the cases that we've seen now, some of the evidence, I don't know what else it's going to take other than us going public and naming these people and pointing to the collusion. And what's sad about it is they are putting our members, our reps who are involved in these cases. And look, that's not to say that every single case that our people ain't done something wrong. We're not stupid. We understand there will be some cases where that's happened. But the vast majority of them undoubtedly are fit-ups. They're putting our members through this, our reps through this, because the knock-on impact is they're trying to intimidate everybody in the workplace. That this is what happens if you don't do what we tell you. You know, this thing you keep hearing, stupid things from people that are supposed to be clever business people. This is our business to run. I mean, they have these calls. They're so stupid, some of these people. Some of the managers let our reps hear what's going on. And they're out there, they're sitting in the room with you, with us, and then 10 minutes later, they're out there sort of going like, we told them this, we're complete rubbish, complete nonsense, just to keep this thing going, that they've built this army of managers up to do what they want to do at the top. And I'll tell you what's going on. They're frightened to go back to that group of managers and tell them that that's got to stop. Because they think that the managers then, and we've seen this over the years, it ain't the first time it's happened, this is the worst time, where the managers then sort of go, well, the CWU, you know, are clearly like moving forward now. We're going to have to start talking to the reps again. They ain't got the bottle to stand up in front and admit that they were wrong and that they've got to start repairing relationships. And until they do that, we can't conclude an agreement. We can't sit in a room while you're all being attacked out there. So that brings on the inevitability at some point of us using the mandate. And I want to say this to the members, in all honesty, it is time to change the dynamics. It is time to reach an agreement. We know you want to reach an agreement. We know you backed us for that purpose. That's what we said. And we can achieve that agreement. The big stumbling block at the moment is these two things. The treatment of our reps and members in the workplace and the executive action. Now, the executive action, we've got to be open about why that's difficult to resolve. So the company are clearly saying to us, we can't stop when volume decline is going down and has gone down, and we haven't had revisions for a long, long time. We can't stop moving that forward because of the financial position of the company. Myself and Andy and the executive, we discussed that. We recognise that the company has serious financial and economic challenges to overcome. What we do not understand, and I don't think anybody in their right mind would understand, is how on earth are you going to do that if you don't involve and work with the people who have got to make the changes work? And that's why we cannot accept executive action. We're not asking them to pause. We're asking our reps to be able to re-engage. And on the attendance pattern changes that Andy referred to as spiteful, that is exactly what it is. Because the network changes, they don't come until September of this year. So the negotiations that will focus on whatever happens or what was meant to happen around the network, how you consolidate parcel deliveries, how you deliver over the day, all of those things, that's still going on. These people are shifting your attendance times by executive action not because of that change. They're doing it out of spite to demoralise our members. And you know, that's got to stop. We will put in a sensible process that means the company will get savings. We can work together, but the price that they've got to accept for that is that our reps can re-engage with dignity, with respect, and our members can listen to what the reps have got to say. We'll work together to make the revision work. Now, if that can kick off over the next 2 or 3 weeks, that gives myself, Andy, and our negotiating team the opportunity to conclude the deal. Those 2 things have got to be solved. The ball's in Royal Mail's court. If they bring the ball in, which they have now, then they've got to bring a bit of common sense into this debate. So, you know, you can see that we're passionate about this because the frustration that you have day in, day out, believe us, is shared by us day in, day out. And it's getting to a point where if we can't sort this out by Monday, you know, we'll go live on the media and tell them exactly what is going on, because it can't carry on. And, you know, let's hope that the company come to their senses. Let's hope tomorrow or today even that the process that, although they haven't confirmed the statement, which is why we can't send it out at the moment, let's hope they confirm the statement. Let's hope that we resolve these issues and we give you better news within the next 48 hours or so. We're willing to work over the weekend to ensure that. We know every day that goes by, there's another bout of executive action coming in. And by the way, we have got to deal retrospectively with the executive action as well. In any solution, we've got to give you the opportunity to look at that. The level of savings will always be a difficult issue, and we recognise the company needs to make savings to align the workload to the resourcing model in the office. So look, you're getting from us exactly what the problems are, and I hope you understand that we are determined to sort this out once and for all.
Thank you, Dave. I mean, one of the things that Dave touched on there I thought was interesting was, you know, the potential climb down from managerial attitudes in that form of intimidation stuff. And then the moment, Dave, you talked about, which happens in previous disputes, I found that extremely interesting at the select committee yesterday, because you had like 2 groups of managers, I thought, yesterday. You had, thank you to all those, by the way, who gave evidence to the select committee, because that takes something. You've actually gone in there and you've said this is the truth. But also to that sort of maybe like more loyal company foot soldier brigade who's been carrying out some of these actions, they were all put under the bus yesterday, because they were all told, apparently you were all rogue managers and you've all made your own minds up to deliver letters over parcels. So come on, come across the line a little bit quicker. Andy, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the positive. So, I mean, obviously, you know, the fact that you and Dave have articulated that we're nearing a joint statement is a positive thing. You know, we know we've got these 2 huge looming issues, but, you know, you 2 guys aren't just here today to say, you know, we're fuming. You're here to say, actually, the board have intervened. There's 2 new figures in the negotiations. And I wondered if, I mean, obviously, you know, all of you guys have been in there. I wondered if there had been an attitude shift in those meetings. Were there better standards of meeting? Were there better standards of debate? Are you more confident now that we're going to be reaching towards an agreement?
Okay, so the joint statement is a vehicle for those negotiations to take place. It's a statement of intent, and it lays out the agenda for the talk. So, you know, that's the joint statement. Hopefully we'll get that over the line today and we'll be able to publish that. In terms of the tone and the attitude of the talks, it's actually refreshing to have the 2 non-executive directors in the room. You know, look, they won't be able to deal with detail, but we don't want to deal with detail. We want to deal with fundamental principles, the key issues. So, look, if we can resolve the executive action, and, you know, things like having just simple things like having re-signs where people can sign for their duty in seniority order, people not being thrown onto reserve duties after having done 20 and 30 years, things like that need to be resolved, because this is how people operate in their working lives. But if we can get that out of the way, and also a proper process for reviewing independently the disciplines and the dismissals and the suspensions, then we want to get into the real meat of the dispute, which is the pay and change. And you know, we're looking forward to that, and we're looking forward to having some real positive discussions with these 2 non-executive directors brokered by Sir Brendan Barber and ACAS. So yeah, that's what we want to get into. Pay is obviously fundamentally important. Dave's talked about the financial state of the company, and it is in dire straits. They're going to be announcing their annual report accounts on the 17th of May. That will be potentially a watershed day for Royal Mail. We saw at the select committee yesterday that they're admitting they're losing hundreds of millions of pounds. Well, the answer to that is to get your workforce on board and get the workforce working for the company, not doing the opposite. The workforce is the greatest asset Royal Mail's got. And I've said this on previous occasions, without our membership, there ain't a Royal Mail. So Royal Mail's got to wake up and realise that they need to invest in our people and treat them with dignity and respect. So look, yeah, we are optimistic. The mood appears to have changed with the intervention of the board and these two non-executive directors. Behind that will still be many of the people we've been dealing with previously, because they've got the expertise and the knowledge of the operation. But we've got to deal with the key principles and the key fundamentals. And we want to get into that from Tuesday onwards, assuming we can sort out the two critical issues. So, our aspirations is sort out the discipline, sort out the executive action, the revisions, and then we get into the real meat of the dispute, pay and change.
Thanks, Andy. Dave, the select committee, I don't want to sort of overplay that or underplay it really, because obviously, what's going to win us this dispute is the strength of our members, the resolve of our members, the continued support of our members. But, it can be a negative thing for the membership and the union to have a light shined on, if nothing else, like exposing what postal workers have had to deal with in recent years and what you guys have had to deal with in the negotiating room in recent years. I wouldn't put a score on yesterday's performance, but if I did, it wouldn't be great. A highly unusual act of asking the witnesses to swear on oath from the select committee yesterday. It didn't seem at the conclusion of the event that the select committee were happy again with the performance of the Royal Mail witnesses. What is the significance of that moment? Is it because if I'm on, I see on our pages like people going out brilliant, making memes out of how many times Simon Thompson called for Ricky's assistance and all the mad stuff that was going on in there and ducking and diving and swerving and stuff. But equally, some people are on our page going, yeah, but I'm still starting an hour later tomorrow morning. Yeah, but my rep's still suspended. Yeah, but my fan share colleague's still suspended, I'm still getting harassed on a daily basis. So, is it just fear or is it a proper pressure point?
It's kind of both, is the truth. What we want to say to the members is that our focus is not on select committees. Our focus is on reaching the agreement and doing the job that you want us to do to resolve these issues, including what we've spoken about today within the workplace. What the select committee does do, though, is, you said it, Chris, it's a process, where you've got to go there and you can suddenly have a wider external debate about what's happening in the industry. So is it helpful to us? Of course it is. And anybody who watched the first episode of it and anybody who watched the second episode of it today, or yesterday, will know that the pressure is on the company now. And what we think will happen is that, having watched it and actually knowing the processes that follow some of that, I doubt very much that the people who are leading the select committee, the chair of the select committee and the MPs that make it up, who are cross-party MPs, they're not all one party, I doubt very much that they will just accept that that's where it ends. What they've got open to is slightly different process as we understand it. If you're a government department or if you're a government-owned organisation, there's a sort of more power, if you like. If you're a private company, it's a slightly different process. But I guess they will sit there now and consider whether or not they need to take that to a further step. And they can do that as we understand it. So let's wait and see what happens there. It was evident that, they're not happy with what was said. And I don't think any of our members would be happy, although some of it was, you sit there and in the moment you sort of smile or whatever, because that some of the things that are being said are simply not true. What I took comfort from was that any of our members watching that, and tribute to all the members, I don't think there's been more people write in to a select committee than what our members have done. So this ain't the union sort of like, using political influence to sort this out. This is the members being willing to write in and give evidence themselves.
And managers.
And managers, yeah. I mean, the amount of times it was referred to managers, yeah, but we know that's going on. We know there are whistleblowers out there who are being intimidated by the same group. I'm going to keep coming back to that because that is going on every single day. Not all your managers are wanting to be in this place. Far from it. They're feeling the same pressures as what our members are. Some of them who have always been against the union and against things, they've been let off the leash. But there's others out there who know this is wrong, but they're being intimidated from the top. And it was good to hear that there were whistleblowers who have gone to that select committee. Well, that don't get left there. That's serious stuff. And, we think that the more light that can be shone on this going forward is going to be helpful. There's three things that Royal Mail are under huge pressure on now. One is the position that they describe as the gravity of their financial situation. And that's developed over time. We should talk about that a bit more. We have to take that seriously because it would be wrong not to do that. We know why it's happened. We ain't taking responsibility for that in terms of the strikes. I think that's their responsibility for some of the decisions that they've made. But we have to reach a point where we all agree that there is a serious problem to solve. They're not the only company in that position, by the way. I mean, the pandemic has had impacts on people in different ways. It boosted Royal Mail's finances for a defined period, but then it's fallen off a cliff. Everyone could have predicted that, which just explains even more what a stupid decision by the company to walk away from the pathway to change agreement. I bet if they had their time again, that they would now be implementing that deal, not walking away from it. So the first pressure point is their finances. The second point is the ballot. I mean, the ballot, what the ballot says is that our members, after all the attacks that they've been through, after all the executive action, after everything else, they have not shifted an inch in their opposition to the company's actions and their proposals and in their support for the union. And then, of course, the third point that pressurizes them is exposing what's going on in wider circles. And the select committee has definitely helped do that. And, if that has to take another step forward, which we would think it will do now, they're not just going to accept what Royal Mail said yesterday. I mean, look, on those 3 points yesterday, you could pick out so many moments, but let's be absolutely clear here. Royal Mail are deliberately running down the USO. That's part of their strategy because they want to get rid of it, because they think it's a burden. And what's key in this, we're not naive enough to not realise that letters are in decline. Letters are not going to disappear completely. There's still around, I think he said yesterday, 7 or 8 billion items. We understand there's about 7 million people in the country who still use the letter service regularly. That is in law. It's not Royal Mail's job to be trying to deliberately undermine that. That's why the MPs, and even the Tory MP was very strong on that. They're getting angry at that because they know that what we've been saying for some time is true, that Royal Mail's strategy is to deliberately undermine the USO, to attack jobs, to become simply a parcel courier, because they don't think that part of it works for them. Now, our job is to convince them that actually, if you want to be successful and grow the business, then surely you would use your existing infrastructure to do that. And that's where we've developed a lot of proposals to make this happen, that would protect jobs. There will be some job losses. First of all, that should be agency staff being removed. Secondly, they shouldn't be bringing in more owner drivers. And thirdly, we're never going to accept the company introducing new entrance terms and conditions. We ain't signing up to that because that would be a disaster for our existing members. Because as that force grows, then the terms and conditions, whilst they may offer you, that they'll protect those conditions now, as more people come in on new conditions, they'll put the pressure on performance management and all of that stuff. So look, that was what it showed. What it also showed to me was the truth is not being told under oath. Now, I don't know where people go after that. I can't believe that the people who listened to that, the MPs who were fronting up that committee, are going to leave it at that. Because our members know the truth. The managers who have become whistleblowers know the truth. And, I think there's some serious stuff that's taken place there. So I'm sure there's more to come on that, but let's wait and see. Our focus is on reaching an agreement and negotiating the resolution to this dispute.
Spot on, thank you. And I'll give you both now, starting with Andy, a chance to give a final message to the members at this point. So I'm assuming, obviously, if we reach a joint statement, hopefully we will. We're going to communicate that, communicating plenty from the negotiations that yourselves and the officers are attending into next week. So there's going to be no lack of update on a continual basis. We've got an executive next week as well, which will get messages out from after. But at this juncture, Andy, your closing message.
Okay, I just was struck by a couple of points of the select committee yesterday. So they made a big deal. They hyped up this trust survey, talked about 50,000 responses and all the rest of it. Look, the reality is the biggest trust survey has been our members' ballot. I mean, we blew that out of the water with that 95.9% yes vote, and what was it, the 77.3% turnout. Yeah, look, I mean, that is a real trust survey. So, I took that with a little bit of pinch of salt. I mean, bearing in mind their numbers also include managers participating.
I saw yesterday when we were, Dave's point about the sort of the back and forth and the potential ongoing consequences. There was a raft of CW postal workers all over the social media pages yesterday saying that in their offices the manager had filled out the trust survey and. Sorry,
I mean, look, you take their trust survey.
Probably got a bonus for it.
An absolute pinch of salt. I mean, look, our ballot has to go before the independent scrutineers. It's totally legal. It's through the post. It doesn't come anywhere near CW headquarters. It goes into that scrutineer, and it's above challenge or approach. The other thing that struck me was that, look, surely to goodness, Royal Mail's got to wake up and realise they can't use the PDAs for performance management. I mean, performance management through PDAs has to be dead as a dodo. It's got to be, because I think the chair really eloquently described the fact that men and women work at different paces according to their age, their physiques, and all the rest of it. I used to be out of charge, tear around like whatever in my 20s. I can't do that now. People naturally slow down as they get older, and that has to be borne in mind. So there's no average pace that people can work at. And of course, the reality is the walks are getting longer as jobs are coming out. There's fewer people to deliver those letters. So that needs to be borne in mind. So I think the select committee was important. It was theatre, but it was also serious. And look, we will be scrutinising the Hansard report and seeing what nuggets we can find there, because the contradictions kept on coming, didn't they? One after the other. But look, in terms of looking forward, we've got this meeting tomorrow with the two non-executive directors and Sir Brendan Barber. We hope to be back in talks again on Monday. We've set a 3-week deadline. So look, we want them to be intense talks. But look, if we can't resolve the issue of the disciplines and the conduct of members and reps and the revisions, then we will have to seriously consider, using the yes vote. We prefer not to. We prefer to, reach a deal, and we think we're in the best position now to do that deal. But we won't hesitate to press buttons if we need to do so. But the objective is to reach an agreement, not to take the action. And we've got the ballots live for 6 months, so there's no urgency. And I think Dave used a really good expression early on. We've got to let the ballot breathe. We've got to ensure that the pressure is on the employer from the ballot. And let's hope that will focus their minds and concentrate their minds into doing the right thing across the negotiating table. Finish with one last point. Somebody at the executive said this yesterday. Some wag of our members said, they come out with this slogan, it's their company to run. Well, our members think the way they're carrying on, it's their company to ruin. If they carry on the way they're going without this union being at the centre of how this company operates and manages itself, they will ruin this company. We ain't going to let that happen, because we need this company to be here for years to come. Our members need job security, and we need to ensure there's a future for everybody, not just those that are employed at the moment, but other young people coming into the industry. We care passionately about Royal Mail. It's safe in our hands. It's certainly not safe in the hands of the people that are running it at the moment.
Thanks, Andy. Brilliant. I think one of the things you've touched on there, which is so important, I think the union can be, and the members can be so proud of, is opening up that wider debate that needs to be had on the abuse of technology of all workers, and particularly in the postal sector. And I think that's something I'm sure Dave's and the postal executive and yourself will be really keen on widening that campaign at the appropriate point. Dave, your closing message.
Yeah, just a couple of points on that, by the way, that what they didn't say in the giving their evidence yesterday was that, one, the agreement that they kept referring to, they've actually served notice on it.
There is.
So, that was a lie. So they were trying to say that the union agree these things. Our agreement makes it absolutely clear that you can't use it for the purposes of what they have been using it, but they've actually served notice on that agreement. The second point is in their best and final offer. Obviously, the guy who's leading it, Darren Jones, he didn't have that information, but in their best and final offer, the proposal that they're asking the union to agree, which we're not going to agree, is exactly the usage of it that they were denying yesterday. So, I mean, these people have been found out, and, the longer we can do it. Look, where are we? Actually, we believe that this process, the intervention, is the right way forward for us, and that we want to reach an agreement. And we are confident that we can get an agreement now on all of the issues that are involved in pay and change. We understand, that there's serious circumstances that the business are facing. We want to help overcome those circumstances. The barrier here at the moment is that the managers who have led this charge against workers to remove their voice in the local workplace against the union, where they become obsessed by that rather than reaching an agreement, they have got to stand down now. They've either got to be removed and got out of the way. They've got to stop the nonsense that they're in a war themselves. And we've got to sort out the conduct issues and the executive action. We've got to do that in a fair way that recognises some of the company's pressures, and we're willing to do that. If we can get that sorted in the next, say, 48 hours, as the executive said yesterday, by a close of play Monday, then we will reach an agreement. We're confident of that we'll find a solution to that. We're not saying that there ain't going to be difficult issues. If you want to reach an agreement, look, the truth is both sides have got to compromise. And on this issue of trust, do you trust them? Trust isn't going to come from reaching the agreement. Trust will come from the implementation of that agreement. And that means that we've got to involve in implementing that agreement the very people who are attacking our members now. They've got to be part of that. Our reps have got to be part of that. They've got to rebuild relationships. If we can do this in the right way, all it's going to take is sensible stuff from the company to, give our members back their dignity at work. That ain't a lot to ask for when we're sitting on a 95% yes vote and the company is saying they're in serious financial difficulties. We've got to work together. Let's hope they come to their senses. Let's hope we have some good news for you. In the meantime, final message from us is this. We really do understand the pressures that you're under. We think at the moment that the process that we're starting to move forward on is the right way to deal with that. But obviously we understand that there's a limited time span to how long we can wait. And the executive, their job is to hold us to account. I've made it clear that we've got to sort that bit out by close of play Monday. That's fine. That's exactly the right way of dealing with this problem. So we'll keep you updated. We'll probably put out some further written comms that the reps can talk to you about. We're pleased that we've been able to have this session because it might not be the right time for everybody, but we have given you the fullest and most comprehensive update that we can give you. So hopefully that you'll watch this, you'll get other members to watch it, you'll understand where we are. So thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks to both of you two. Really, really valuable. To the members, I can see a couple of you who missed the start. It's all going to be available on Catch Up now. We'll also slice it up so you get the relevant answers from Dave and Andy throughout the day. Take it easy and we'll keep updating you. Thanks for your support.